Welcome back. We're discussing euthanasia, and joining me again is Charles Lewis, a former National Post editor and reporter who still does actually quite a bit of writing. And Charlie, again, thank you so much for being with us today. We sort of unpacked or we danced a little bit around what the law in Canada, how it's impacting Canadians. But what is exactly the law in Canada right now as it stands, Charlie?
Right. Well, it originally started off with you had to be close to death and in intractable pain. Then a case in Quebec said, no, no, that's not fair. So you can now request euthanasia if you're not immediately dying, which again, I'm going to be honest. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people who know this subject. It's very confusing. But I think here's the most important point for people to get. Okay, so the government comes out 2016, June, and says, no worries, there's no slippery slope, no fear mongering, fine. In December of the same year, it was reported in a few places, the government struck a committee to say, what is the possibilities of extending euthanasia to teenagers and the mentally ill?
Mm,
Now, they said, well, we're just looking at it. And my view is, and I think I'm right, you don't just look at something that you're never going to do. So, for example, if they decided to, as a personal thing, deport all bald people to some island somewhere, well, you wouldn't study that unless somebody said, we should really get rid of these bald people. And so that is something to be careful of. Now, this year, they pushed the idea of euthanasia for the mentally ill. Okay. And I think they got some blowback from some newspaper columnists. The statistics for it were kind of murky. And I think the liberals kind of realized, you know what, we don't get nothing to gain by this. But it's not gone, right? It's not
right.
gone because they said we'll look at it again or enact it in March 2027, which is only 2 years away.
And I
The
think
other thing I should,
Yeah, I was gonna say there
yeah,
were also quite a few anecdotes that seemed to come out into the media, like there was a gentleman or a woman, I think it was a gentleman who was homeless, and so euthanasia was offered, and these, like, maybe not typical scenarios, but still they happened. Or,
well,
there was somebody who was battling, I think it was with diabetes, and then again, euthanasia was offered, and people were like, "Wait, hold on a second, what's going on here?"
Well, when you're really sick, in fact, I volunteered for a year at a hospice that dealt only with homeless people who were dying, right?
Wow.
Now, all of them had mental problems because A, they're dying, they had been on the street, right? I mean, in fact, some people would say anybody who asks for euthanasia, maybe in a few cases, there's exceptions, is mentally suffering, right? I mean, you don't ask to die because you feel good,
Mm.
or you feel assured that the disease you have won't kill you. So the whole idea of a separate category of mentally ill is a bit of a joke because they're already killing people who are mentally ill. It's not their sole condition.
So when
But
we hear about these cases, and as you're sharing your experience in the hospice where you were volunteering, some have argued, and you and I've had conversations about this. Like, has euthanasia then weakened the spirit or the will of Canadians?
yeah, absolutely. I'll give you a little study that I got from Alex Schadenberg. Now it's a few years old, but it's typical. So in Ottawa, they did 45 lung cancer cases, right?
Hmm.
I'm sure I'm going to mess up the numbers, but the spirit of it is correct that they had 14 or 15 of those people went straight to MAID without ever getting a biopsy or attempting to try treatment. Now, was diagnosed with liver cancer 7 years ago, and I was told you probably could live another 5 years. So it's now 7 years, and I'm still here, I think, anyway, apparently.
You are. I can say that for a fact you are.
Apparently. Now, the thing is I got all sorts of treatments. Liver cancer is not curable, but in fact, I was told recently after 30 months of remission that I may be cured. And I think what it is that the new techniques they're using, see, that's the whole thing. Medicine keeps advancing.
Mm,
So, like years ago, if somebody in Oregon, when they first brought in euthanasia, you had to have 6 months to live. And for cancer, that was often the prognosis. They'd say you could live till Christmas or something. You can't say that anymore. I mean, I'm alive for 7 years since the diagnosis. So,
wow.
how do you actually apply euthanasia to people who have whatever it may be, cancer or something else, and morally kill them when you know full well that with some treatment they could live for years.
It's a good
And
point. It's a very
it's
good
not just
point.
living them, it's also that you're robbing people of their chance to be with their children, grandchildren, spouses,
Right.
friends. I mean, you're not, it's not, this is the problem. I think what's happened is when people get a
Let me pause you
diagnosis.
there, Charlie. Let me pause you there. We're going to pick this up in just a moment.